podcast. My name is Dr. Mike.
And my name is Natalia.
Hey, Natalia, how you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. How about yourself?
I'm blessed and highly favored. So we're going to continue our discussion that we've been having here in Genesis chapter 2, verse 24 about the leaving and the uniting and the becoming of one. And the last time we got together, we started focusing on the cleaving or the uniting. And we said that this refers to a permanent bonding together of husband and wife in a lasting relationship which allows nothing or no one to come in between them. And the emphasis there is allows nothing or no one to come between them. Now, we're going to talk about that in a future podcast. We're going to talk about the importance of boundaries. And then we said that this leaving and cleaving and uniting is a commitment, not emotional love. It's a commitment, not emotional love, that will make a marriage last. See, and that's the whole purpose of what we're doing here. We're trying to impart to people things that's going to help them make their marriage last. Mm-hmm. It's a commitment, not emotional love. And it includes unconditional acceptance of the other's partner's imperfection and shortcomings. That's where we left off last week, and that's why I want to pick up today. Unconditional acceptance of another's imperfection and shortcomings. We often talk about unconditional love in marriage, but that unconditional love is an unconditional acceptance of the other partner's imperfection and shortcomings. Now, some people think when they get married that they're marrying the perfect one. The perfect one. They're the knight in shining armor. They have no imperfections whatsoever. Is that a true statement?
That is not a true statement. I've always said that. I said, you know what? God has a sense of humor. Because you really don't know a person until you live with a person. Wow. And by no means am I endorsing or saying go live with a person first to find out who they are.
No.
But you really don't know an individual until you live with an individual. The things that you thought that were cute at the beginning, they become not so cute.
So
the longer you live with them.
So again, we're talking about, you don't marry the person that you date. Because when you're dating a person, you're seeing all of their perfections. They're going to show up on time. They're going to be well-groomed. You're going to see the perfect person.
I wouldn't even call it perfect.
Well,
I will call it more so they're going to be on their best behavior. Be it a male or a woman.
Right.
You are going to show up your best self.
Yeah, you're going to present your best self. But after you say I do, see,
that's when things start relaxing.
And see, that's when you realize that this perfect person that you thought was perfect isn't perfect. They have some shortcomings. But this unconditional love, this commitment that we're talking about, you have to be accepting of the other partner's imperfections and shortcomings. So how do we do this and the marriage is taken now to the next level? How do we, what do you do to accept a person's imperfection? Because, people might find it hard to believe, but when you first met me, I wasn't perfect, and when I met you, you weren't perfect. But here we are, 33 years later, still in love and still accepting of each other's imperfections and shortcomings. What is that process like?
I think it begins with understanding, number one, you're not perfect. Okay? You're not perfect. You have shortcomings. There's some things that you do that will annoy anybody or another individual in your life. So first, beginning with the understanding you are not perfect. Therefore, there has to be some grace given to the other individual in the relationship, and understanding, you know what? Understand the way they think, understand the way they function, to begin to understand why they do the things that they do and how they do them.
You said some key things there because, when you were single, it was all about you. You didn't have to consider anybody else's imperfection. You just had to deal with your own imperfection.
And sometimes you don't even deal with your own imperfections when you're single.
Well,
because you're blindsided.
Well, that's a whole separate podcast. But 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 my point is, you know, so when you have this other person coming into your life now, they don't do things like you do it. See, and so the problem can occur is when you're now trying to impose your way of doing things on that person to make them perfect in your eyes. And that's problematic in relationships. That's why it says unconditional acceptance. So tell me what that means and tell me what it don't mean. Because if a person is lazy, if a person is inconsiderate, we're not talking about being acceptance of those things.
No.
If they're rude, we're not talking about being accepting of those things. So where is there a line? How much of imperfections and shortcomings, where's that at? How we gauge that?
Like I said before, there's some non-negotiables.
Non-negotiables like lying would be a non-negotiable.
Deceitfulness, cheating, those are non-negotiables.
And they're non-negotiables because they speak to the issue of character and integrity.
Exactly.
So when it comes to character and integrity, that's a non-negotiable. Now we said that we're not looking for somebody that's perfect because there's somebody that's perfect, and everybody got shortcomings, but the character and integrity issues are non-negotiable. You know, because that gets to the root of what a relationship is all about.
Trust.
I have to trust you.
If I don't trust you, we can't move forward.
Uh-huh.
We can't prosper.
We can't say it again.
If I don't trust you, we can't prosper. We can't move forward in this relationship.
We can't move forward in relationship because we're always suspicious or suspect of a character flaw.
Correct.
Now again, character flaws can be corrected.
If the individual chooses to correct
if individual chooses to correct them, because again, it goes to that cleaving, uniting, and the becoming of one. If I can't trust you, or if you have some integrity or character issues, it's going to be difficult to become one. Because always in the back of your mind, you're going to be thinking about when a character flaw is going to come up. See, you know, some things, some imperfections. Okay, you don't make your bed. Okay, we can deal with that. We can work in that. Okay, you leave the toilet seat up. Okay, we can work with that. Ain't no big deal. That's not a. I don't
know about that one.
Well, that's not a deal breaker. But if you're a liar,
yeah, we can't deal with that.
If I can't trust your word, if I have to second guess everything you say,
if I have to check your phone, if I have to put a tracker on you, and do all of that stuff that some people are doing today,
it's crazy. It's crazy. And the thing about it, we had none of that when we first got together, nor did we need it, because again, our relationship was based on trust. But again, because if you can't trust a person, like you said, use the word, how can you move forward into becoming one? How can you move forward? If a person is a liar and you can't trust what the word, how can you move forward?
Let's put it down. Let's be practical about it. And this is, in my personal opinion, some of the people may think, hey, this is what you got to do. But if I can't trust you and I have to put trackers on you, check your call logs and all of that stuff, that's like another job. And that's the last thing you should be looking for in a prosperous marriage. That's another job that you're having to perform. You're becoming FBI, what is it? NCIS and all of these different agencies all in one, just to keep up with the other individual who you don't trust, who has character flaws and believes that it's okay. So that's what they do all the time.
But that should be a red flag.
It should be.
And oftentimes when we counsel people after the fact, when you counsel them, we come to find out that these same red flags, these integrity issues, these non-negotiables were present before they said I do. But I guess in their thinking that it would go away with time.
No, it doesn't go away. Like I said earlier, things are magnified when you get married.
Right. Because lying is not going to go away with time.
No.
Lack of trust is not going to go away with time. There got to be some evidence, there's some proof that you're changed in those areas.
Deceitfulness is not going to go
no,
away with time.
No. So it doesn't matter how many trackers you put on the phone and all of these things that people are going through, dealing with now. Technology is such, all of that checking people's texts and stuff, that's madness, that's insanity. That should never be.
Another job.
It's another job, but it's a non-negotiable. We can't move forward in a relationship. How can we come together? Amos 3:3 said this. How can two walk together unless they're agreed? So how can you come to an agreement on anything?
That's good.
If there's a lack of trust, a lack of integrity. So these are the non-negotiables. Now again, if a person snores, look, let's get them a mouth guard or something like that. We can work that. That's not a deal breaker. I'm not gonna divorce you because you're snoring, okay? Or so there's certain things that you can deal with, but a liar, a cheater, being deceitful, being dishonest.
Again,
Here I am thinking there's money in the bank account, and here I am at the cashier trying to buy some food, and my card keeps getting declined. And then I come home and found out that you took out some money without telling me.
Yeah, there's going to be some problems.
There's going to be some problems. See,
that's some major problems.
See, that's a lack of communication, number one. And if it's happening
continuously,
it could be a sign of integrity issue.
And if we've discussed it,
right, and it's still happening
at nauseum,
and it's still happening,
there is a problem. And it's going to lead to bigger problems.
Well, one thing it's not going to lead to is not going to lead into becoming one. All right, because that's always going to be a hindrance. I can't trust you with money. Now, again, we're going to talk about this. Again, we're going to talk about the stewardship of money, but, you have a lot of couples today. That's one of the issues. They understand about the becoming of one, the two becoming one in a marriage relationship.
In a sexual way.
Well, you went there.
Yeah, in a sexual way.
We're going to talk about that becoming one flesh. But in a sexual way, but not in a financial.
Not in the bank account way.
Not in the bank account way. Again, when the scripture says the two become one, that's what it means.
In all respects, in all areas.
In all areas.
Now, we're not going to be naive about some things and some red flags that we see.
No, you got to see them. But before we move on here, again, let's make sure that the people understand what we're saying here. You're not going to find a perfect partner.
No.
So there's some imperfections and shortcomings you have to deal with because you're not going to find a perfect partner. But the non-negotiables, you can't not waver on the non-negotiables.
No, you can't not waver if you want a peaceful life.
A peaceful life. And again, because we hear some things. And people, some mindsets some people have, well, when I get married, he'll stop doing this. Or when I get married, she'll stop doing this. Again, that's fantasy. That's a fantasy. That's not reality.
If you don't discuss it, it's not going to go away automatically.
If you don't identify it and discuss it,
it's not going to go away
right.
automatically.
And then you said something key before we move on here. I'm trying to move on, but you said patterns. So if a person has a pattern, let's say, of cheating,
yeah, that's not going to be a relationship.
You getting with him or getting with her is not going to stop them from cheating.
So you have a decision to make.
Right, but back up now. I want to make sure we make the connection here. Because cheating is a character issue.
And it's a non-negotiable.
There you go. So let's move on to now, before we move on, I'm trying to move on. The Cleveland Uniting, we talked about that in the previous podcast. That's a continuous process. We're 33 years in. We still are cleaving. We're still uniting. We're still becoming one.
Becoming one.
Now, they're coming one. They're united as one. one flesh. The two shall become one flesh. They are united as one, becoming one, the process. So what does the one flesh refer to?
It refers to a man and a woman uniting spiritually, emotionally, sexually, and becoming one flesh.
Okay, let's break this down. Spiritually, emotionally, and sexually to become one flesh. Now, again, we see some elements here that's in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. We got the spirit, the soul, and the body. Okay? The spirit, the soul, and the body. That's what man is made up of. Spirit, soul, and body. So this uniting refers to uniting spiritually, emotionally, and sexually. Now, let's break these down. Why is it important that a man and a woman unite spiritually?
Because we must believe the same things.
Okay.
We need to have some point of union in the spiritual area in order to be able to move forward successfully in a relationship.
Okay, you remember in one of our, I think it was the first or second podcast we did. Remember I showed you the triangle that every marriage is a Christian marriage. That's what I'm specifically talking about. You have to include God in the picture. That's part of the relationship. There is no marriage relationship without the spiritual component of that marriage relationship. And it's important that we be on the same accord, the same sheet of music when it comes to our beliefs. That's why the Bible talks about in 1 Corinthians about don't be unequally yoked together. Mm-hmm. Meaning that you believe one thing, I believe something else. You're of one faith, I'm of another faith. That's going to be problematic because what faith are we going to unite together in and believe in?
That will make the relationship strained.
That will make the relationship strained. If one partner has faith and the other partner is faithless, see,
yeah,
that's
another job.
Oh my God! If one partner is praying and the other one isn't praying. Now, don't get me wrong. Now, especially in the area of prayer, you can cover one another in prayer. But just think how great the marriage would be if both partners were united as one in prayer. When the issue comes out, both partners aren't freaking out, but they give it to the Lord in prayer. See, that's a powerful connection in this marriage union. Now, we have to unite spiritually, and what about emotionally? Emotions. When we're talking about emotions, we're talking about a blending of the two emotions. Because we had a conversation about this earlier about, how one person might get up in their emotions and another person might be low in their emotions. Is having that emotional balance. Yeah. Emotional balance.
Not only emotional balance, but the part of the spiritual, having the spiritual maturity, okay, to understand that all the times you're not going to be up, both of y'all are not going to be up, and both of y'all prayerfully, you will not be down at the same time. So if something's taking place in your household, something is taking place within the relationship, that there is a balance that can be obtained with two people who are spiritually connected with God, understanding that if one is down, the other one that's up can lift the other one up.
Now that word emotional also implies the mind, the mental, the thinking. So we got to be on the same accord when it comes to the mind, the emotional, the thinking. Again, just like the spiritual. If I'm thinking one thing and you thinking another thing, then we're never going to come together as one. All right, so we have to get on the same accord emotionally and sexually. Now, let me say this before we even get started. We're talking about in the context of marriage. So there's only one context that sex is in biblically, and that's the context of marriage. The Bible, I know we live in modern times and everybody doing their own thing, but as far as the Word of God is concerned, there's only one context for sex, and that's marriage. is done in a marriage relationship, the two becoming one. The Bible speaks harshly about any sexual union outside of marriage. There's two words that the Bible uses: adultery and fornication. Adultery is when either party is married and they're having sexual relationship with someone they're not married to. Fornication is two people who aren't married that are engaged in a sexual union. So again, that's what the Bible speaks of. And the Bible doesn't change. God is the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. Now, there's a reason why he created it this way. Okay, now we'll get into this when we get into another podcast. But the Bible, in this, when God put the marriage together, remember, God is the instituted marriage in the garden. It was for Adam and Eve to be united as one forever. It was never a situation where Eve would go out and find her somebody else, or Adam would go find him somebody else. No, this marriage union was this oneness that will last forever. That's God's intent. Now, we do want to understand things happen. So that's why we, part of what we do is we'll talk about people who, have been divorced and want to be remarried. We're going to address all of that. But God's original intent was one man, one woman for life. And that one man, one woman for life is the uniting spiritually, emotionally, and sexually. Mm-hmm. Okay?
And working through whatever issues may come their way.
Right.
Working through.
In the sex, when we're talking about sexual here, in the sex department, nothing's in the Bible about testing the waters. Okay, to see how the fish are swimming. I'm trying to keep it PG here. Okay, because there's another thing we're gonna talk about. It's called soul ties. Mm-hmm. See, people don't understand about them soul ties. Mm-hmm. All right, everybody that you done went swimming with. Okay. All right. See, we're gonna talk about that. I'm trying to keep it PG. But listen, it's a uniting spiritually, emotionally, and sexually to become one flesh, one man, one woman, united with God forever. All right? The intimate oneness and unity are the intended purpose of marriage. The oneness and unity are the intended purpose of marriage. And what will this require?
It will require communication, communion, communication, and companionship with one another. And this is a picture of God's perfect plan for marriage.
Right. The communion with God and one another, the communication with God and one another, and the companionship with God, with one another and God. We can't take God out the picture. If God is out the picture, you have no marriage. And this is God's perfect plan for marriage. Now, again, we're going to end the podcast on this today because what we looked at over these previous podcasts was God's perfect plan. Mm-hmm. And as we know, everything didn't go in accordance with God's perfect plan. So the next time we get together, we're going to talk about some realities of marriage. We just got to talk about the realities of marriage. There's some things that don't fall in line with God's perfect plan, but we can do better. We can get better. We can make it better. We can get the relationship as close as possible to God's perfect plan.
We can get back in line.
All right. So listen, I want to thank everybody for being on the podcast today. I pray that something that we said today has been a blessing to you. And we look forward to our next podcast. So until that time, be blessed in Jesus' name.